criteria for deciding whether a point is maximum or minimum. How do you qualify a point to be maximum or minimum? The problem at hand was minimizing a function, a scalar function, from m dimensions to one dimension, Rm to R, and we wanted to qualify which point in the state space qualifies to be an optimum point. So we said the point at which the first derivative, the gradient, goes to 0, that point is a stationary point, to be very precise. It could be a maximum, it could be a minimum, it could be a saddle point, we do not know, okay. So to come up with qualification, further qualification, we have to look at the second derivative, the Hessian matrix, and if Hessian matrix is positive definite or positive semi-definite, it gives us way to qualify the point to be a minimum or a maximum. So it should be strictly positive definite. If it is to be a minimum, it should be strictly negative definite, it is to be a maximum. Okay, so let me just summarize what we looked at. So this was so we are looking at necessary and sufficient conditions for optimality. We have this function phi x from Rm to R, and we said that this phi function is twice differentiable, okay, at any point. Right now this x belongs to Rm, m dimensional space, okay, and then we said that if a point x equal to x bar, if this point x equal to x bar, we want to see whether this is a stationary point, then gradient of phi with respect to x at x equal to x bar. So this is nothing but dou phi by dou x1, dou phi by dou x2 this gradient vector should be equal to 0, and the way this necessary condition was proved by considering the fact that if you take it non-zero, it contradicts the fact that x bar is a local minimum. Well, we are talking only about local minimum. This is a condition to be satisfied at a local minimum, because all the arguments regarding a point to be local minimum or a local maximum, that is a stationary point, were made using Taylor series expansion. Taylor series expansion holds only locally, it does not hold everywhere globally. So these conditions, necessary condition is a local condition, just remember that. So first thing is, given a objective function, first thing is to compute its gradient and set it equal to 0. That will give you, if you can find such a point, then that qualifies to be a stationary point where you have gradient equal to 0. We further qualify, so this x bar is a stationary point. It is a stationary point, and whether this stationary point further qualifies to be an optimum, that is maximum or a minimum, that will depend upon this matrix. So by the way, this derivative is computed at x equal to x bar. This computed at x equal to x bar, okay. Now phi of x bar plus delta x, we wrote this as phi of x bar plus grad x phi at x bar transpose delta x plus half. If we approximate this locally using Taylor series, it is delta x transpose del square phi and now we have said that this is a stationary point, so this is 0, so this is 0, right, and then locally we want to look at this difference which is governed by locally in a small neighborhood of x bar. This difference is governed by this delta x transpose this term governs the local behavior in the neighborhood of x bar. Okay. Now if x bar is a minimum, what should happen? If I move away from the minimum, what should happen? Value should increase. So this difference should always be positive. Any direction I try to move away from x bar, if x bar is a minimum, any direction I try to move away from x bar, I should have this difference to be positive. That will be possible only when this matrix is positive definite. If this matrix is positive definite, what is definition of positive definiteness? X transpose Ax is always greater than 0 for any non-zero x. Anyway, any direction I try to move, okay, this will always be positive. That is positive definite matrix. If this is always positive, irrespective of whichever direction I try to move away from x bar, then x bar is a minimum. Okay, just whatever you can visualize in 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions, same thing holds in n dimensions. If you try to move away from that point, just think of being in a valley. Any which way, if there is the lowest point in the valley, any which way you try to move, you will only increase height. You will not go further below. Okay, if you are at a minimum, then that is the logic, simple logic. Okay, how do you mathematically express this? Using positive definite matrices. Okay, mathematical quantification of simple fact that you know that when you are in a valley, at the lowest point in the valley, any direction you try to move, okay, height will increase, it cannot further decrease. Same thing is being said here. Just remember that simple thing and correlate with this mathematical analysis, then you will understand it better. Now other way around. Now if x bar is a maximum, you are at a peak, what should happen? Any way which you move, height will decrease. Any way which you move. So what should happen is, if I make any movement delta x from x bar, this difference should be negative. Okay, when will that happen? For any delta x, that is very important, for any delta x, that will happen if this is negative definite. If this Hessian matrix is negative definite, I am sure that any which way I move, okay, this is going to be negative. So that means x bar is a local peak. Of course, these local conditions should also be satisfied at the global condition. However, this analysis does not tell us how to reach the global conditions. It just tells us, given a point, if the derivative is 0, how do we qualify it? Minimum or a maximum locally. Okay. Now this condition can be checked for an objective function which is twice differentiable of course. You cannot check it if your objective function is not differentiable or twice differentiable. So that is very critical. So this is how, what if your matrix is neither positive definite nor negative definite, then the point is neither a minimum nor a maximum. In terms of a hill, it could be something like this, like a step where gradient with respect is becoming 0, or a saddle point in what you know as a saddle point. So a multidimensional extension of a saddle point. Let's say you have a valley, but a valley which is something like this. Well, it's difficult to draw. I'm not good at. Let's say there is no one unique point. There is no one unique point where you have, you have multiple points where the gradient goes to 0. So you may have minimum with respect to one variable, not a minimum with respect to other variable. So you may have a saddle condition where there is not a unique point where. So a saddle point is qualified by looking at property of this matrix, local matrix. The nice thing is that definiteness of this particular matrix will allow us to find out whether particular matrix is a particular point is maximum, minimum, or a saddle point. Okay, now let's come back to our problem of fitting Cp versus temperature. Okay, I am going to generalize this set of equations and then going to solve it. So now let me rewrite this problem which we had at hand. We had this Cp values, Cp1, Cp2, Cpn. I had these n values, correct? I had n values. I had collected this Cp values at different temperatures at T1, T2, T3, Tn, large number of, right? I am just rewriting those equations in a matrix form. Earlier I had just put them one below each other as single equations. I am now just rewriting them as one matrix equation. That will help me solve the problem very easily. So now this is 1 T1, T1 square, 1 T2, T2 square, just have a look at those earlier equations. I am just revisiting them, writing them in a different form. Everyone with me on this? Same equations. How many unknowns? N plus 3, and number of equations right now we have are only 3. Okay, so first thing that we need to do is to define an objective function. That objective function should be twice differentiable, right? That objective function should be twice differentiable, and then we should minimize that and see whether the minimum is a positive definite matrix or negative definite matrix. Then we will be able to qualify whether we have reached a minimum or not. Okay, so now I am going to call this as x. I am going to call this as x. I am going to call this vector as capital E. X is a vector which is 3-dimensional in this case. In general, x will be a vector which is m-dimensional. Suppose you have cubic equation which you are fitting, there will be 4, okay, and so on. So if you fit a higher order equation, you will get a higher order polynomial. And I am going to call this matrix as matrix A. Let me see whether I am consistent with the notation. Slight change in the notation. I am going to call this as theta. I am calling it theta because theta is typically, if you see literature on parameter estimation, a parameter vector is called theta. Okay, that's why I am calling it theta. No, nothing particular about this. Also, in the notes, I have developed everything with notation as theta. So when you read the notes, it will be easier for you to follow. Okay. So this particular vector I am going to call as capital U. This particular vector I am going to call as capital U. This is A, this is theta, this is E. My large number of linear equations, which are these linear equations? Why? But there is T1 square, T2 square, they are known. I have taken measurements of temperature, T1, T2, T3, Tn are known. I can compute this, so these will be just columns of a matrix with some numbers. So this is a linear matrix equation, okay. So my equation reduces to U is equal to A theta plus E. E is the vector of errors. E is a vector of errors. Okay. Now I need to define an objective function. And then this objective function should be differentiable. I should take its first derivative and set it equal to 0. Take its derivative with respect to A, B, C. Okay. Now I am just moving from this specific problem to a general problem where theta in general could be m dimensional. Okay. This A will be n cross m matrix. See here m is 3, so this is n cross 3 matrix. It's a tall matrix. No? So this n could be 100 and you have only 3 parameters to be estimated. Okay. Okay, so I am going to define a phi of theta which is E transpose E, which is nothing but E1 square plus E2 square En square, sum of the square of errors. What are these? What is E1 to En? Errors in modeling. We are developing a correlation model of Cp versus temperature. Okay, it is not exact fit, it is an approximate correlation. This E1 to En are errors. Okay, I want to develop a model that minimizes sum of the square of errors. Simple idea, which probably you have heard or done in your undergraduate studies. For single parameter probably, we fit a line. We very usually fit a line. I don't know whether we do in undergraduate, we are taught to find out the best or least square fit, but we fit a line by many times in experiments. We fit a line by just observing what is the trend visually. Okay, we don't try to do all this business. But then if you ask Excel or MATLAB, they will do this for you and give you. Okay, so now, so what is this? This is equal to U minus A theta transpose U minus A theta, right? What is E? U minus A theta, U minus A theta. Okay, now how do I find the optimum? This is a scalar function. Is this a scalar function? Why? This is simply norm E2 square, right? Sum of the square of elements, norm E2 square. Norm is a scalar function. In fact, it's a positive scalar function. It will always be positive. Well, an objective function need not always be positive, but in this case, it turns out to be strictly positive. The smallest value E transpose E can take is 0. That means all the errors are 0. Okay. Well, whether that is possible for this particular problem or not is a different story, but the smallest value it can take is 0 in this case. Okay. So what I want to find out is, I want to find out dou phi by dou theta, that should be equal to, so this should be dou phi by dou theta 1 to dou phi by dou theta m. This should be equal to 0 vector. Okay, now I need to know something about how do I differentiate. So this is a function of a vector which maps into a scalar. How do I differentiate this? How do I differentiate with respect to a vector? We know how to differentiate with respect to a scalar value, right? So how do I differentiate with respect to vector? I am just going to state the rules. You can derive them, they are not so difficult to derive. You need to be a little bit patient and do your algebra correctly. So in terms of notation, I am just digressing a little bit because I want to differentiate this E transpose E with respect to theta, set that equal to 0. Okay, I will get m additional equations. See, these are already n equations. I need m more equations. M here happens to be 3. I need m more equations. Those equations will be obtained when I do this. But before that, I should know how to differentiate a function which is a scalar function which is function of a vector. So let's say I have this function f which is x transpose by. I have a function x which is x transpose by. B is a matrix, x and y are vectors. I just want to differentiate f. Now f is a scalar function, you can see that. F is a scalar function, okay. How do I differentiate? So dou by dou x of dou f by dou x, dou f by dou x, differentiating this scalar function with respect to the first argument x, okay. That is by. Dou f by dou y is equal to b transpose x, okay, and a straightforward corollary of this is that dou by dou x of x transpose bx is equal to 2bx if B is symmetric. If B is symmetric matrix, then it looks, B is symmetric matrix, okay, then it is, well, if it is not a symmetric matrix, then what will it be? B plus B transpose, B plus B transpose. If it is not a symmetric matrix, it will be B x plus B transpose x, okay. So we can use this rules to differentiate this function with respect to theta and come up with a solution. So how do I do that? So can you differentiate? Can you tell me what is the solution? Just differentiate, just use these rules. Can you expand this? Say this will be phi is equal to u transpose u minus u transpose a theta minus theta transpose A transpose theta transpose A transpose u plus theta transpose A transpose A theta. I have just expanded this. I have just expanded 4 terms. U is a vector, U is a vector, A theta is a vector, right? And then I am just expanding this, the simple matrix multiplication. Okay. Now what is U? U is a vector of known values, it's a constant vector. So what is dou phi by dou theta? This part will be 0. What about this guy? Apply the rules correctly. Will be A transpose U, A transpose U. So if I differentiate this dou phi by dou theta, I will get minus 2 A transpose U plus 2 times A transpose A theta. I don't know whether you all agree with me. Why I am writing 2 times here? This A transpose A is a special matrix. What kind of matrix it is? Pardon me? No, why 1 by 1? It will be M cross M, no? In this case it will be a 3 cross 3 matrix. Can I say that A transpose A is always a symmetric matrix? You take transpose of A transpose A, you will get back A transpose A. Okay, positive definite matrix naturally appears here. We don't have to make any effort. Okay, it just plops out from the equations. So this is a positive definite matrix. In fact, this will turn out to be a positive definite matrix. This is a symmetric matrix. This is a symmetric matrix. We'll go on to show that this is positive definite also. So this particular matrix is a symmetric matrix. So I can write 2A transpose A. Okay, that is because A transpose A. Just check this. A transpose is equal to A transpose A. So whatever is this matrix, just remember that this particular matrix, whatever is this matrix, you know, howsoever tall it is, 1000 equations and 3 variables, and it might be filled with all kinds of strange numbers. This matrix, that is A transpose A, will always be symmetric matrix. Always be symmetric matrix. In fact, we will show that if these columns are linearly independent, then that particular matrix will be positive definite matrix. Okay, it will be a positive definite matrix. So now the task is done. If this is 0, if I set this equal to 0, what do I get? I set this equal to 0. Then what is the theta? How do you compute theta? What is this matrix? What is size of this matrix? It is M by M. Okay, so if M is 3, this will be 3 cross 3. Okay, so this particular matrix, so setting gradient equal to 0 gives us this equation, A transpose A times theta is equal to A transpose U. Okay, so this is M cross M. What is dimension of this matrix? A transpose is, so this is M cross N into N cross 1. So this is M cross 1. So finally you are getting an equation which is 3 cross 3 matrix. And how many equations you wanted? M equations, or you wanted 3 equations. In this particular case we wanted 3 equations. We have those 3 equations now. This is M equations. Okay, in how many unknowns? M unknowns. This is M cross 1. This is M cross 1. M unknowns. I solve this problem. Now, if columns of A are linearly independent, just think about what I am saying. I am not going to prove it. If columns of A are linearly independent, then this matrix is invertible. Not only that, this matrix will always be positive definite. Okay, before we proceed further and I show that why it is positive definite, what is the second derivative of this? A transpose A, right? So the second derivative, dou 2 phi by dou theta square is equal to 2 times A transpose A, right? So now, depending upon whether this matrix is positive definite, okay, if this turns out to be positive definite matrix, then we are done, then we have reached the minimum. Okay, in fact this is the linear equation. You can show that this minimum is not just local, this is the global minimum for linear set of equations. We reach the global minimum. Okay, now my task is to show so that A transpose A is a positive definite symmetric matrix. Is very straightforward, positive definite matrix. Okay, now let us assume that A has columns are linearly independent. columns of A are linearly independent. Okay, what does it mean? When will you get Ax equal to 0? When will you get this? If columns are linearly independent, which vector x will give you 0 vector? Only 0 vector. If columns are linearly independent, this will be 0, is same as saying x is equal to 0. You cannot get, if a columns are linearly independent, only way you can get Ax equal to 0 is x is equal to 0. Okay, now how do you check what is the definition of positive definiteness? Positive definiteness is that x transpose A transpose A x should be greater than 0 if x is not equal to 0, right? Okay, I am just going to write this, I am going to write this as Ax transpose Ax. Am I correct? I am just clubbing x and A, Ax transpose Ax. Okay, so what is Ax transpose Ax? Norm Ax2 square. When will this be 0? If, see there are two situations. If A is a singular, if A has columns which are linearly dependent, there might be an x which will give you 0. But we have said that columns of A are linearly independent. So if you have an x which is non-zero, this vector is going to be non-zero. And this is square of the norm. Square of the norm is always a positive number. So whatever x value, whatever x vector you give me, A transpose A is going to be a symmetric positive definite, very nice matrix. Okay, matrix which we keep studying in linear algebra. Here it just pops out naturally as part of the development. So A transpose A is a symmetric positive definite matrix. I am showing here that for any x, you will always get a positive number if x is not equal to 0. So this will be greater than 0 if x is not equal to 0. So this satisfies the definition of positive definiteness. Okay, there are algebraic conditions like eigenvalue should be positive and all that, let's not worry about it right now, we'll visit that a little later. But here using the basic definition of positive definiteness, I am showing that this A transpose A is always positive. Okay, which means not only that I have reached a stationary point, I have reached the minimum. It's a linear model, there is only one minimum, I have reached the minimum. Okay, if I have to do all this using one norm of E or infinite norm of E is not possible, because one norm of E is not differentiable. I cannot use this nice theory. Okay, infinite norm is not differentiable, I cannot use all this nice theory. So there are problems if I use some other norms. Two norms, very nice, you can differentiate and get this result. Now I am going to relate all this to projections. I will show that this is nothing but projecting a vector onto a subspace. Geometric interpretation, what is happening here, that is what I am going to do next. So why we are able to relate it to projections? Because as I said, in a inner product space, in a Hilbert space, with an inner product, norm gets free, you get a free norm, two norm, and you get angle. You can talk about orthogonality, you can talk about projections, you can just generalize the ideas which you know from 3-dimension school geometry. Okay, so this is a symmetric positive definite matrix, we have reached the global minimum, this is the solution. Any such problem I can solve using. Now do I have to stick to polynomials? I really don't have to. Okay, I can talk about any function approximation. So I am going to take a scenario. Here I looked at Cp as a function of temperature. That was one specific example. Okay, I don't have to stick to only polynomials. I could any function which is linear in parameters, I could actually estimate the parameters by this approach. Let's say I am approximating a function, say u, which is, I have this function uz, and I know its values at z1, z2, zn, and these values are say u1, u2, un. This is my data set. I don't want to fit a polynomial. Let's say I want to fit sine and cos. You are perfectly allowed to do that. Okay. So I want to fit a function which is I want to fit a function, say fz, which is or let's call this function by some other notation. Okay, so I want to fit a function, say u cap z, okay, which is theta 1 well, this need not be function of only one variable, right? It could be function of multiple variables. In this case, okay, let's take first situation when you have a function of only one variable, say z1 plus theta 2 f2 z2. So I am fitting this function approximation. Of course, there will be an error here. So u cap is my approximation. Theta 1 into f1z, theta 2 into f2z, and so on. Okay, polynomial was one type of approximation. I had chosen this to be 1, I had chosen this to be z, I had chosen the second to be z square, z cube, and so on. That's one particular type of approximation. I could have chosen first one to be sine z, second to be cos z, third to be 2 sine z, fourth to be 2 cos z, and so on. Cos 2z, sine 2z, and I could have chosen some other functions. I could have chosen Legendre polynomials, I could have chosen shifted Legendre polynomials. It's up to me what should I choose. I could have chosen all kinds of different functions here. I can apply the same theory, which is very nice, because I know these functions, I have chosen these functions. Okay, I can evaluate them at a particular point. Okay. So let's take a scenario where you want to approximate this. Let's take, instead of being abstract, let me put it in a concrete form. So theta 1, say f1 is my sine z plus theta 2 cos z plus theta 3 sine 2z plus theta 4 cos 2z plus error. Let's say this is my approximation function. Okay, what do? I do the same thing which I did earlier. I just write u1, u2, these are the values which I know at n different points. These are the values that I know at n different points. I can say first one is sine z1 cos z1 sine 2 z1 cos 2 z1, then second row is sine z2, and finally sine zn cos. So I write this huge matrix. How many parameters? 4 parameters. So this is theta 1, theta 2, theta 3, theta 4, plus I have this E1 to En, same equation. Okay, so this f here could be any complex function. Mind you, this particular model is linear in parameter. Okay, we have formally defined what is a linear function some time back. So you should just check. When you call a function to be a linear function, f of alpha x plus beta y will be alpha times f of x plus beta times f of y. That will exactly hold here. So this is a linear in parameter function. Any linear in parameter model, you can do this. Okay, you can actually. So what do I get here? This is my U vector, okay. This is my A matrix. This is my A matrix. This is my theta, and this is my E. How do I get least square estimate of theta? A transpose A. So least square estimate of theta is simply theta hat least square. That's what we write. Theta hat, y hat, it is an estimate of theta. There are different ways of getting theta. If you were to define one norm instead of two norms, you will get a different theta. So I am calling this as theta, which is obtained through least square of errors. Okay, that's why theta hat least squares is nothing but A transpose A. Now we have shown that this is a positive definite symmetric matrix. A positive definite matrix means no eigenvalue 0. It must be invertible. So I can write inverse A transpose U. A transpose U. In fact, this matrix is called as pseudo inverse of A. Why pseudo inverse? A is a non-square matrix. A is a non-square matrix. Okay? A is n cross m. I cannot invert it by the normal sense of n cross n square matrix. This matrix, why it is pseudo inverse? What happens if you post multiply it by A? When you call something to be inverse, you multiply the matrix and matrix inverse, you should get identity matrix. Take this matrix, post multiply it, not pre multiply, post multiply it by A. What will happen? Identity matrix. So that's why this A transpose A inverse A transpose is called as pseudo inverse of A matrix. In MATLAB there is a function called PINV, pseudo inverse. INV can be used for square matrices, PINV can be used for non-square matrices. You just say PINV. Doing this in MATLAB is just 2 minutes. Formulate A matrix, say PINV A times U, you get the theta, the square theta. Okay, fraction of a second, you can do this. You should know the theory behind this, that's very important. Okay, so is this clear? I don't have to have polynomials, I can have any complex function. Okay, I'll give you an example from chemical engineering. And sometimes you do not have to begin with, you may not have a linear equation, but you might be able to come to a linear in parameter equation once you do a transformation. See, I'll give you an example. I want to fit data. I am carrying out some reaction and I want to estimate the kinetics of the reaction. Okay, so I have this RA is equal to or minus RA is equal to K Ca to power n. Okay, or let's put it K naught E by RT, right? Or maybe I should write in the order should be K naught E to the power E by RT into Ca to power n. This is my model. Okay, actually I should write this model with an error here. We don't write it because this may not be exact model. We are proposing this model. It's an approximate model. So we should, strictly speaking, should write an error. Error here, say epsilon, because don't confuse with E here. E here is exponential. So this is my model, and I want to get least square estimates. What are the unknown parameters? K naught E, R is known, okay, and N. What is the data that you have? Ca and T. Ca and T, okay, is the data that you have. I could do a log transformation of this model, okay. I can say log of minus Ra is equal to log K naught minus E by R T plus N log Ca, right? N log Ca. Okay. Now I can write this as log k naught plus, or rather minus, E by R into 1 by T plus n log Ca. I have collected data for concentration, and at different concentrations and different temperature I have data for rate expression. I want to get a least square estimate. Okay, is this a linear in parameter model? What are the parameters? Log k naught, E by R, or E, whatever. E, if you want to take R on this side you can do that, since you know R. So E is unknown parameter, and N. Okay. So here in this matrix, what you will get, in this matrix what I will get is 1, 1 here, then minus 1 by T1 minus 1 by T2 minus 1 by Tn. This column is coming because of this variable 1 by T. Okay. The third column, what will be the third column? Log Ca1, log Ca2, actually log, I should write ln, natural log, log k naught E by R and N. And what should be here? What should be here? R1 minus log R1 minus log not minus log of minus Rn, that minus is a notation. So it should be log minus R1 log minus R2. You know all these reaction rates. Just remember minus is a notation, so it's not so, we are not taking log of a negative number. So this is the equation that you get. This is the u vector which you know. This is the u vector because you know the rates at different temperature and concentration. Okay, you have estimates of the rates. This matrix is known to you, A matrix. Temperatures are known to you, concentrations are known to you. So this is known matrix. This is known matrix. This is my theta which I want to estimate. Okay, what is the least square solution? A transpose A inverse A transpose U. Just remember this formula, very very important. A transpose A inverse A transpose. This is called as pseudo inverse of A. A transpose A inverse A transpose. A transpose A is always a square matrix, and if columns of A are linearly independent, it's always invertible matrix. And what you get here from the least square sense is the minimum. Okay, there cannot be any other value of theta which will give you smaller sum of the square of errors. For a linear in parameter model, you cannot get a model which will give you smaller value than this optimum value which you get. Okay, so this is my least square problem. This least square problem is used in many ways. In the assignment, I'll give you other problems from chemical engineering where you do least square fitting to estimate the parameters. Sometimes what happens is that sometimes a model is not transformable to a linear. It cannot be linearized. I will call this as a linearization step. In the linearization step, you can do some transformation and convert. Originally, the model is not a linear in parameter. E and N and K naught, they are multiplying and they don't appear in the fundamental definition. will not satisfy here. That is, f of alpha x plus beta y is same as alpha f of x plus beta f of, that will not be satisfied for this function, but that will be satisfied this transform function. Now this is not possible always to get this. I'll tell you one more model in chemical engineering where you can do this transformation, okay, and estimate the parameters. This is how it is done. One more classic model in chemical engineering is, correct me if I am wrong, Nusselt number is equal to alpha 1 into Reynolds number raised to alpha 2 and Prandtl number raised to alpha 3, right? Nusselt number is equal to, then how do I, this is not a linear in parameter model. What are the known quantities here? I would have data for Nusselt number, Reynolds number for different flows. I have collected data for Prandtl number, Nusselt number, and I want to fit and I want to estimate alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3. Okay, this is not a linear in parameter model but simple log transformation. So if I take log of nu, it will be log alpha 1 plus alpha 2 log Reynolds number plus alpha 3 log Prandtl number. This transform model is linear in parameter. Okay, I could use least square estimation technique to estimate log alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3. If I get log alpha 1, I can get alpha 1, not an issue, right? So this is simple transformation. What is mass transfer correlation? Schmidt number is equal to, or Sherwood number, sorry, Sherwood number is equal to, yeah, so SH is equal to some beta 1 plus Reynolds number raised to alpha 1 or beta 2 plus what, Schmidt number? Well, for me it's almost 20 years now, so you are fresh. So right, this is some 0.63, and you may have viscosity correction mu by mu s raised to something, fourth parameter. So you may have 4 parameters, but once you do this transformation, it's a linear in parameter model. You can use least square parameter estimation. These columns will be different. This column will be different. Same idea works. You get least square estimates of alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, alpha 4 just by taking A transpose A inverse. So polynomial fitting is not the only thing. I am just now, polynomial fitting we started with because we wanted to do something with discretizing a boundary value problem or partial differential equation, but least square estimation goes much beyond. All this was discovered by Gauss, the famous mathematician, in the realm of mathematics or in the realm of history of mathematics. Gauss is called as Prince of Mathematics, and the work he did actually is now major fields. Okay, least square estimation, Gaussian densities, Gaussian quadrature. So there's so many things. I mean, I don't know what we would be doing if Gauss had not discovered. Gauss was a child prodigy. He discovered many things at a very early age, and the things that he started, actually he started looking at least square estimation because he wanted to fit. I think he was looking at the problem of fitting a orbit into the data obtained from motion of planets around the sun. That was the problem that was being discussed at that time. So what is the best fit? It doesn't happen to be a circle, actually it's an ellipse, and you have to fit, because if you look at the data has some errors, and then you have to do a best fit to get the model, correct model. So what he started about 150 or 200 years back is now just spans, I mean it's all these tools are used in image reconstruction, they are used in soft sensing, they are used in, just name it. Least square estimation forms the foundation, okay, or work by Gauss forms the foundation. So we are here today because of this Prince of Mathematics, Gauss.